Presenting Edward Marasco is his wife, Joyce Marasco.
Thank you all. I was charged with introducing Ed today. He asked me to do this, and I am honored. Gary told me to be entertaining and brief, so that's what I plan to do. And tell you some things about Ed that you maybe would or wouldn't know. But Ed and I met through EMS. We had our first date at Denny's on Lebanon Church Road at 1 a.m. in the morning. He was working as a supervisor in American Ambulance, on the clock, actually. Talked for 4 hours. At the end of that time, he said, "You know I have to marry you." And I said, "Is that a threat or a promise?" And he said, "That is a promise." And we got engaged 3 weeks later and got married 8 months later, and we'll be married 41 years this year. So, but that morning, as I'm very excited because I met the man I was going to marry, I said to my dad as I'm getting ready as my last year in nursing school, "Dad, I met the man I'm going to marry." And he goes, "Great, a damn ambulance driver." I said to him, wait, he has lots of potential. Trust me on this, he has lots of potential. And fast forward, I describe Ed to anybody who hasn't met him as the kindest, smartest human that you will ever meet. And I will stand by that till the day I die. Ed has never met a stranger, ever. He will talk to everybody and anybody. Concession person thing, ticket taker, you name it, he'll talk to you. And in our family, we have a big joke. After he talks to a stranger, he'll know everything about them, including their blood type, right? So when they come back, we always say, "Okay, what was his blood type?" But he often ends those conversations with his card and the words, "If I can ever do anything, or if I can ever help you in any way, please don't hesitate to call me." And I cannot tell you how many evenings, weekends, days, people have reached out to him and said, "Do you have a minute to talk? Can you help me with this?" And I have never known the man to say no. He gives good, solid advice and listens very well. Our family, they affectionately call him Switzerland because he is kind of presents all sides. I will not tell you what country they call me. And just to show you how kind he is, in the console of his truck, he has a stack of note cards, handwritten note cards with fast food gift cards in them. And he hands them out when he sees somebody down on his luck. And the cards say, "I'm sorry that you're having a tough time. I hope this will help you. There are people who think about you." And in Pittsburgh and Hilton Head, where we live, numbers for resources that they can call that maybe they don't, have access to. And so he is so kind and so thoughtful that everybody gets a handwritten note. Last, I'm going to give you an example of the kind and the smart. On Thanksgiving Day in 2020, my mom, it was her first day out since having a cardiac arrest in downtown Pittsburgh 4 months earlier. And at 86, she was resuscitated but had 12 broken ribs. And so her recovery was still, it was challenging at the best. We had a great day, just an absolutely fabulous day. And at the end of the day, one of my sons and Ed put my mom in the car in the back seat, and where I was getting in, and I buckled myself in, and Ed turned to my mom and said, "Alberta," what's her name? She says, "Alberta, you did great today." And she said, "Ed, thank you so much." She was so proud of that he told her that. As we were pulling out of the driveway, in the next 30 seconds, she took her last breath. And from this very grateful daughter's heart, I cannot tell you how much that means to me. that the last words she heard were words of kindness and love, and I will never be able to repay him for that. But let's fast forward to the smart part. So we're halfway in the street, halfway out of the street. I jump out of the car. I confirm she's dead. I said to him, what do we do? What do you think we do? Do we take her home? He goes, now, unless you and I are going to recreate Weekend from Bernie's, I'm pretty sure we cannot drive across Allegheny County with a dead body. So I think that we better call 911. I'm like, okay, that's a plan. And we did. And guess what? Ed knew the person. Of course he did. So my husband, the smartest, kindest human you will ever meet, and I give you the love of my life and my absolute best friend, Ed Marasco.
Thank you. Good morning. How the heck do you follow that, right? I mean, she should have just dropped the mic and we should go home, go to lunch. I am humbled, as David said and Jeff said, I'm humbled and honored to be here. There are tons and tons of deserving people here in Western Pennsylvania that have done amazing things. And my run in EMS and in healthcare has been a true blessing. And it's something that I am truly grateful for. I wanted to say thanks to the E-Services family, and I say that with a capital F because what they do together in their real work and in this work, having the Legends event is truly a family affair, and it's a labor of love, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here because of all the hard work that Jesse and his team put in. So thank you to them. Also wanted to say something about individual recognition. As I was reflecting on this time with you this morning, it occurred to me that there are a couple of choices in terms of how we get here. And some people could say that the system in Western Pennsylvania is a product of the people in Western Pennsylvania, and some people would say that the people are a product of the system. I think in a lot of ways it's a little bit of both. So I'm going to talk to you this morning a bit about the process and how I came to be here and why I think the system molded me in a way that I am tremendously grateful for. First, I want to say some thank yous to the family. As Joyce said, we met in a kind of a strange way, and I'll have more about that in a minute, some more detail. And I am grateful for Joyce. She has been my life partner, the best person in my life, one of my mentors, truly, and for sure. And she's always sort of kept the trains running. Some of you who don't know me maybe as well, I've always traveled about 2 weeks a month our entire married life. And so Joyce was the one that sort of always made sure the boys were taken care of and things sort of worked. I will tell you one bad story on myself. It was about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more now, and I was at the Air Medical Transport Conference. And one of the things, the tradition we've had, I call home every night. Doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. I call home, I check on her, I make sure everything's okay, and we say goodnight to each other. And I happened to be on the West Coast. And so I walked out of this restaurant and I looked at my watch and went, oh my God, time change, right? It's way later there than it is here. And so I get on my phone and I call and I say, dear, I'm here at Dana Point at the Ritz-Carlton, just came out of dinner at a really nice Italian restaurant, and I'm looking over the Pacific Ocean, and I thought of you, and I realized the time change, right? Dead silence on the other end of the phone. You know what I had for dinner the last 3 nights? Effing chicken nuggets. So now, when those conversations happen, I say, oh, dinner wasn't very good. I didn't hang out with anybody fun. It was not too good at all. So, you learn those things. But thank you to Joyce and to my family. As I said, I've traveled my whole life professionally, teaching and whatnot, and she keeps the trains online. I want to say thank you to the boys, to Matthew, Adam, and Eric, because You allowed me to pursue this career and the love that I have for it, and never made me feel like it was a competition. The time that we had together, you guys made me feel like it was the perfect amount of time. So I'm truly grateful for that. Our family, many of which who are here today, some who are not, who are no longer with us, we've had great support raising our sons and carrying on our life from our extended family. And so thank you to our family for all that support. I had a sort of a weird way to get here, and everybody talked about high school, and that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I had watched the show Emergency, and we had a few family emergencies in our life. My uncle fell 3 stories off the roof at my grandmother's house on White Street in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Landed between, we had a garden planted next to it, and there were tomato stakes literally 4 feet apart. He rolled off the roof, filled with tar, and just barely missed the tomato stake. It was right near his neck. And of course, the police paddy wagon in McKeesport showed up. But had a lot of the same experience you did. But in the fall of, I think, my junior year, I was sitting in chemistry class, and one of my friends said to me, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?" And I said, "Geez, I don't know what I'm doing next week. I have no idea what I'm doing this summer." He said, "We should take the phys ed elective in the winter. We should take life-saving. We could become lifeguards." I thought, that's not a bad gig. He said, "Yeah, my brothers both did it, and they worked in pools in the summer, and that was kind of fantastic." So away we went. We took the life-saving course, and we got jobs at White Oak Pool, which is kind of where the cake eaters hung out. I don't want to insult anybody from White Oak, but mostly cake eaters in White Oak. So it was not a hard job at all. But if you're going to be a lifeguard at the pool, you had to be CPR certified. So off we go to White Oak Rescue down on Maple Street in White Oak, and we sign up for the CPR class. And so we take the CPR class, and when class was over, we get a little card, so now we can go and actually complete our employment and get our swimsuits and all that stuff to be lifeguards. And they said, "Hey, there's not much chance that you're going to encounter a cardiac arrest up at the pool, but there's a good chance somebody's going to fall and get cut, or somebody's going to fall and break a bone. We're starting this thing called an advanced first aid course. It starts next week. It's a couple nights a week, like 40 hours, I think it was at the time, if I remember correctly. You guys should think about that." And so my friend and I decided to sign up, and there were 1 or 2 other lifeguards from the group who joined up as well. And so we'd work every day, and then a couple nights a week, we would get down to the rescue squad, and we would take the AFA course. When we got all done, or 40 hours later, they handed us applications and said, "Now you can join the rescue squad." And that's how I got started. And that friend is somebody you all probably remember. His name was Neil Jones. The Jones boys were pretty good swimmers, actually, all 3 of them. Neil actually held the record for the 50-yard freestyle in WPIL for many, many years. But that little conversation, what are you doing this summer, turned into Neil and I both getting an EMS. His brother David, who spent a lot of years, just retired in State College, and his brother Mark, who spent time in White Oak at White Oak EMS and on the board. It was one of those things that, like David Lindell said, it was sort of fortuitous. So that's how I got involved in EMS. I worked there at White Oak and in McKeesport, which is where I lived. And at the time the Stat Medevac program was starting, an outfit called American Ambulance, the Craig Funeral Home in McKeesport, right? Go figure, right? American Ambulance started and had the contract to do the transports for the Stat member hospitals, the Center for Emergency Medicine, but also included to staff the communication center at StatCom and provide all the transports from the old OC lot, which for those of you who don't know, it's OC means Old Cemetery. And before the helipad was at Presby, we had to meet the helicopter up there and bring everybody down. So I spent a lot of time in Oakland. I was there all the time, and I got introduced to one of my mentors. His name is Ron Stewart. And I spent time with Ron around the Center for Emergency Medicine, and I dispatched the Sunday night shift, 7P to 7A. And so I know Jim Hauser's here. I'm hoping the statute of limitations is over on this, but every 3rd week I was going out Monday morning on a 24 and on the truck. And so Joyce would come at 8 o'clock, shift change was 7, wait till the other person left. Joyce would come at 8 o'clock with a blanket, a pillow, and a book. And she would listen to the radio and answer the phones so I could take a nap. And then 11 o'clock, she would pack up the blanket and the pillow and her book, and she would head back home because she was still in nursing school in those days. And that's how I got to spend time around the center. And I met Ron, and he was one of the most inspiring people. He lived, breathed, ate EMS. I mean, he had a house in Squirrel Hill, but he had a dorm room in Lothrop Hall above the center, and that's where he spent most of his time. He was always sitting at the IBM display writer, and I got a chance to just sit and talk with one of the most brilliant minds in emergency medicine. It was a wonderful thing. I also, like many of the folks here today, spoke. I have mentors in this room, mentors who were prior legends, and so I want to talk for a second about Bill Plunkett. So if you recall Bill's talk here 2 years ago, he talked about me hanging around Baldwin EMS, and he was making fun of me because he knew why I was hanging around Baldwin EMS, and she's sitting over there at table 412 because Joyce was a Baldwin EMS medic in those days, and that's true. But also my exposure to Baldwin was one that included great respect. Bill was a chief's chief. And I learned a ton from Bill and how he managed the operation and the people. And much like Ray Carlin was, very innovative in those days. There was also another guy who was a partner of mine at American Ambulance, and his name was Jim McCaffrey. And Jim was a paramedic's paramedic, and he focused on patient care, was always number one. He was serious. He educated himself. He educated those, taught those around him. It was an amazing experience to be his partner. I will tell you one rough story about Jim, and it relates to Joyce. When I first got partnered up with him, I was on a pretty good roll socially. I had dated at least one NICU nurse from all of the NICUs in Western Pennsylvania. Mercy, Children's, McGee, West Penn, and of course, Jim and I, we were partners. We spent 24 hours together. He was aware of all this. So one day we go rolling into Jefferson Hospital, and there she is. She's behind the emergency department, and she had brought one of her family members in, and Joyce, if I remember correctly, it may have been your grandmother. And Jim stops and talks to this woman, and I was just speechless. Mouth was dry, couldn't say a word. I'm standing there holding the end of the stretcher like a dope, right? And so we leave. We have to go pick up a patient. Joyce and Jim say their goodbyes. And we go on and we pick up our patient. Now, for the next 12 hours, I tortured him. You got to give me your phone number. You got to give me your phone number. And he said to me, and this is the kind of loyal guy Jim was, he said, "You're not good enough for her." He said, "There's no way I'm giving you her number." But undeterred, I realized I was in the paramedic program at the center at the time, and we had another classmate, a fellow by the name of Rob Dice from North Huntington, and Rob was also a nursing student. So I saw Rob and I said, at class the next, I said, "Hey, don't you guys have some sort of roster or something like that?" He said, "Yeah, we do." So I got Joyce's number off the roster. And eventually we made contact. I actually ran into her at Mercy Hospital one night. She had another family member in. By the way, she'll tell you, both of these times, dirty T-shirts, sweatpants with rips in the rear end and all this stuff. The third time was the charm. She was a nursing student. She was doing her clinical rotation. I get on the elevator in Children's, and she's there fully dressed, white lab coat, the whole 9 yards. Again, couldn't speak, couldn't say a word. But Jim, I hope after all these years, I finally met your approval. 41 years later. So Jim was a great guy. Thank you. And another quick story about Jim. When Joyce was going through paramedic school, Jim helped her. When he was going through nursing school later in life, Joyce was his go-to in terms of tutoring for nursing school. So lots of mentors. I could go on forever. Larry Pietropalo is here. Larry was my boss at CJ Systems when I left the University of Pittsburgh. Larry's a Marine Corps aviator, graduated from the Naval Academy. And Larry lived by the motto, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up way too much space. And so I learned from Larry how to get things done, not have meetings and sing Kumbaya and all that stuff. Great mentor of mine. Michael Lewis, my longtime friend, who after CJ Systems was sold, I went to work for Air Methods for a year, and he said to me, "Buddy, you look miserable. Come to work with Harry and I. We're trying to do great things for EMS agencies, try and help their financial situation get better. We want to grow the company and be able to do things for more people." And so, Michael, thank you for teaching me about having fun again at work. We had a good run. We had lots of great people that we work with. 20 years, as a matter of fact, of a run. The next thing I want to talk briefly about is opportunities. I was gifted with so many opportunities. Starting BTLS in Pennsylvania, Dr. Stewart and Dr. Parrish said to me, we have to start this program. We need pre-hospital trauma training. The problem is there's two courses. There's this PHTLS course and there's BTLS, which is now ITLS, obviously. He said, the problem is Dr. Copeland at Mercy Hospital is an American College of Surgeons, guys, and he's on to PHTLS. So we have to figure this out. I said, no problem. I said, we'll go take both courses. I'll go take both courses and I'll write a report. Okay, fine. He said, you're going to have to take this guy from Mercy Hospital with you. So off we go to York, Pennsylvania to take a PHTLS course. And to get there, and this is, by the way, this is before cell phones, right? I get there, and Joyce and I were engaged at the time. And I call home and I say, hey, I'm here. Everything's good. Had dinner with this guy who's with me. And she said, oh, who's there with you? I said, oh, the guy from Mercy Hospital. His name is Rick Fuller. Dead silence on the other end of the phone. Joyce and Rick Fuller dated before me. Awkward. 3 days hanging out with her ex-boyfriend. It was, anyway, to end that story, of course, on March 2nd and 3rd of 1985, we had the first BTLS, Train the Trainer course in Old Victoria Hall in the nursing school building. Many of the people who were here, including Vern Smith for sure, I think Doug and many others, came and took the course and began to teach BTLS. And it was a blessing for me. I did first courses in West Virginia. Joyce and I actually did the first course in West Virginia, in Rhode Island. And of course, Dr. Stoy and I had the privilege of going to Beekman Downtown Hospital with one Bill Snyderman, and we had the first course in the state of New York later that year. So lots of fun. It was a great experience for me. I have to apologize to Kathy Lindell and the Lindell family. During my time as the Office of Life Support Coordinator, David did not spend very many weekends at home. Every ACLS course, there were 3 people that we would only let teach the airway station and do airway testing. One was John Blanco, who was an anesthesiologist at Children's Hospital. The other was, of course, Dr. Stewart, who was the mecca for airway control. And the other was Dave Lindell. So Kathy and family, I apologize for David not being home very much during my time at CEM. And then I went on to Presby and started the trauma program with Andy Peitzman. It was a tremendous opportunity for me as a young person. I was in my early 20s. I remember about the second month in, they handed me this thing called a budget variance report. I said, what's that? So I had to get up to speed on hospital administration and that kind of thing. But I spent a lot of time with Andy in the car, traversing the beautiful countryside of Western Pennsylvania, doing outreach for the trauma center. Had a chance to do some amazing things there. I think Rick Adabata might be in the room today. I saw his name on the list. There was a time during my tenure at Presby where there were 2 very bad accidents at the bottom of the summit on Route 40 as you come into Uniontown. Fatalities, both of them. And Rick called down to us and said, hey, people are taking this really bad. And it wasn't too much after that, maybe a week or 2, there was a bad house fire in the city of Pittsburgh where an entire family perished, including a couple of children. And so if you know Rich Bolin, you know, he spent a long time as a white shirt with the city of Pittsburgh, but at that time, Rich had joined us at UPMC and he did our outreach and a lot of education. And Rich said, we have to do something about this. I said, yeah, we have to figure this out. I'm not sure what the right answer is. And through a contact and a contact and a contact, one of those people who I had given my card to, and maybe they gave me their card, we found that the folks in Virginia actually had a statewide program for critical incident stress debriefing. So off I went to Virginia and spent a couple of days with the CISD team coordinator there and came back. And Rich and I were able to convince the powers that be at UPMC that this was something worth spending money on. And as most of you know, this became Rich's career and life, providing help to the helpers for, God, many, many years. And I think somebody talked about 427, and I think Rich spent probably 2 or 3 weeks at that strip mall out there in Beaver County supporting the people who were doing the recovery work after the crash of Flight 427. So I've been blessed to have those kind of opportunities in my career. Work for great teams. The team at UPMC that I worked with for all those years on the trauma side, the gang at American Ambulance, the Craig family was very, very good to me. The folks at the Center for Emergency Medicine, many of whom I am still friends with today. it's been a blessing. So I will leave you with a couple of thoughts about our profession. And one is, don't ever miss an opportunity to be a mentor. It's incredibly important that you do it. I would not be here without those people in my life who showed me the way in many respects, both personally and professionally. Those things are very important. Opportunities. Take the opportunities. I know there's some younger folks in the room today. Don't shy away from an opportunity. My dad was one of those guys, United States Army, 38 years in the post office, and he had opportunities to get new jobs over the course of his career there with the post office. And he said, if you want to do it, but don't be afraid to learn about it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get educated on what it is you're doing. And so taking the opportunity, don't miss those opportunities that are out there for you to learn something new or take on a challenge or do something. And if you're a person who's in a position to support somebody who has an opportunity and help them be successful at it, do that. We need that in our profession. And last but not least, if you have a good team, cherish it. If you don't have a good team, build one. Take the time to do it, because that's the future of our profession. We need those people. We need the teams that do what they do. And I'll leave you with this. This, for me, it's an individual honor, but as I said to you, I'm a product of the system here in Western Pennsylvania. And I'll tell you just one quick story as I leave you with that thought, and that is, we're hosting Fitch & Associates and Digitech are hosting a webinar at the end of the month, and I'm being the facilitator for the panel. And I was talking to one of the panelists, just to get ready, what questions do you want me to ask you? We're talking about advocacy, right? And so I was asking this guy, as a fellow from New Jersey, who actually has won the NAMT award for advocacy. And I said, how do you create an environment where you're connected to your commissioners, you're connected with the local media? He said, it starts with me at orientation. I said, really? He said, every new employee, the first thing I do is I give them a copy of American Sirens. I want them to know their history and where they came from. So I leave you with that. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.